الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Inshallah, we'll continue with أحكام الصيام, with the rulings of fasting from the book أخصر المختصرات. And because of the time, I won't go through what we covered yesterday. We'll just go in right away. But again, a reminder for myself and everyone that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept, to give us sincerity, seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What we are witnessing, or any gathering of knowledge, especially with these ahkam, many people, they might find it a dry subject or requires patience because I might lose you very quickly. So that's why we're going through this. And if you go through one word after another, trying to learn these ahkam, this is a great reward, inshallah ta'ala, if we have that sincerity. And as Yahya ibn Abi Kathir rahimahullah, he said that ta'allum al-fiqh salah. When you learn fiqh, this is salah, as if you are in salah. And salah, as the Prophet ﷺ said, خير موضوع, the best subject is the salah. So having this consciousness while we are listening to the ahkam of al-fiqh, especially that we are, Ramadan is coming closer, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us witness the month of Ramadan, to learn for two reasons. And as Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he was also asked to, when he said that to learn this deen, إذا صلحت النية, if our intentions are correct. And when he was asked how to make our intentions correct, for what reason are we learning? For two things. رفع الجهل عن النفس, to lift ignorance from our own selves. This is the first important thing, of course. And the second thing is رفع الجهل عن الغير, to extend that benefits to others, in which we would teach others. So whatever we learn, we teach it to others according to our limitations, of course. We're not here going to be ulama, but we're just learning how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mandatory knowledge for each and every one of us. That's why we're not going into so much of the details of the subject, just to understand some of the masail. If in 45 minutes or so, we might go through 40 points, 40 mas'ala very quickly, inshallah ta'ala, in some of the rulings of fasting that requires for us to be paying attention, inshallah ta'ala. And as also Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, one of the imma of this deen, Imam Muslim rahimahullah, he quoted him in Sahih Muslim, very famous quote: لا يستطاع العلم براحة الجسد. This ilm can never be attained with resting your body. Right? Alhamdulillah, we're all rested, we're all relaxed and comfortable. In the past, they used to strive so much for the ilm. And this is a huge subject. I don't want to take too much of the time here. But so we have to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with these favors that we have. If we have the comfort and the ease, then we have to put more effort. Because it's usually the comfort, brings the opposite. So when we put more effort, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless it. And we should not be blamed of ease, right? A person should not put himself into hardship so that he can learn. No, alhamdulillah, if we have ease, but then we need to work for it, inshallah ta'ala. Going into the subject, inshallah, where we stopped, and if you can see where we're going through some of these rulings here, we stopped as where he says, and again, this is in Arabic, so even if you don't know Arabic whatsoever, just follow, write the notes, inshallah ta'ala, understand what every word means. We don't have to go through the roots of every word, just understand in principle what it means. So this mas'ala here, وَإِنْ أَفْطَرَتْ حَامِلٌ أَوْ مُرْضِعٌ. This page 144. 144, page 144. The middle of the page, or towards the end of the page. As you see, there's an asterisk at the side, so it's asterisk, which is the last two mas'ala here, and each mas'ala has some masail, some mas'ala to it, inshallah ta'ala. So here this mas'ala is وَإِنْ أَفْطَرَتْ حَامِلٌ أَوْ مُرْضِعٌ. Hamil, carrier, meaning a pregnant woman, because she's carrying her baby. أَوْ مُرْضِعٌ, someone that is breastfeeding. So these are two conditions. We talked before about those who are sick, but now a woman that is pregnant or a woman that is breastfeeding, if she breaks her fast, that means it's valid for her to break her fast. But for her to break her fast, she would break her fast because of one of two reasons, or both. The first one, he says, خوفا على أنفسهما, خوفا, out of the fear for her own self. But أنفسهما in the dual tense, referring to the hamil and the murdi'. Al-hamil is the pregnant woman, and the murdi' is the breastfeeding one. So if they fear for themselves, she breaking her fast because she's afraid, she's worried about her own health. If she's breastfeeding, she's worried about her own health. This is the reason why she's breaking her fast. قضتا فقط. They would make up the day. Al-qada is to make up the day. Only make up the day, and there is nothing else. So it's permissible to break the fast just for the fact that she's pregnant or breastfeeding. So if she fears for herself and that's why she's breaking the fast, then to make up the day only, and that's it. The second case here, أو على ولديهما مع الإطعام ممن يمون الولد. If she breaks her fast because of the child, right? Because of the worry that maybe the child will be life in danger if she's pregnant, or she's not having enough milk to breastfeed the child and he depends on her milk. So therefore she's breaking the fast for him or for her, for the child. In that case, she would make up the day. So making up the day in both cases is to be done. But then in the second case here, if she break her fast because of her own child, then there is feeding here for every day, a poor, a miskin, as mentioned yesterday. But who's the one that is going to feed the poor? Not the woman, but rather the mimman yamun al-walad. And the ulama are very precise. Yamun is the one that is taking care financially of the child. Might be the husband. If she doesn't have a husband, then the guardian of the child. So whoever is financially responsible for the child, which is not the mother, it's the husband, or if he's not, then from his asaba or so, from his male relatives. So they are the ones that to give the it'am. And the it'am is feeding, not money, is feeding. And the feeding is for nisf sa', which is 2 handfuls of food, which is a very specific measure if it's burr, if it's wheat or so. Well, not wheat, I'm sorry. Wheat. Or al-burr. Allah musta'an. Have to be careful in California too. MashaAllah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy, inshallah. So I hope this is clear. And again, with these types of sessions, it's easy to misunderstand things, right? So that's why we should have some, if you have anything that is not clear, make sure that you clarify it, inshallah. So this is clear. This is as brief as it like this, and this has evidences and the statements of Abdullah ibn Abbas and others in this. So she doesn't have to feel tired, she doesn't have to, just the fact that she's pregnant or breastfeeding, it's sufficient. If she breaks her fast for her own self, then making up the day only. If it's for her own self and the child, or for the child only, right, then to also make up the day, and to for the feeding, for the one that is responsible financially for the child. If you have questions, inshallah, later. And here, in this case, a person might see that a woman, she's pregnant 1 year, she's breastfeeding the next year, so there's so many days would pile up for her to make up. That's fine, right? According to this opinion, keep it in your record. If you're not able to make up the days, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy later on, she can make up the day. But the issue of feeding, and if a year passes, then feeding also a poor for every day. The next situation here, mas'ala, he says, وَمَنْ أُغْمِيَ عَلَيْهِ. We have to pay attention to these scenarios, right? This is how the masail is. وَمَنْ أُغْمِيَ عَلَيْهِ. We're talking about those who are excused when it comes to fasting. أُغْمِيَ عَلَيْهِ. Al-ighma is fainting. When someone faints, so loses his conscience. أو or junna. Junna from al-junun, that means he became crazy. He lost his mind. He became insane. And as we talked before, al-mukallaf, the one that is responsible for the actions, then they are addressed by the ahkam, by the rulings. If someone lost his mind, he's not responsible for his actions. He's not addressed to start with the ahkam. So we have two situations here mentioned. Someone fainted and someone lost his mind. Jami' an-nahar, the entire day. Jami', the entire day. An-nahar is from Fajr to Maghrib time. So very specific here, and the fiqh teaches us to be very precise. So this is a very specific mas'ala. Someone fainted or lost his mind, he became crazy the entire day from Fajr till Maghrib. He says, لم يصح صومه. His fasting is not, لم يصح is not valid. Is not valid for both cases, because from Fajr to Maghrib he lost his conscience. Lost his conscience because of what? Because of fainting or became crazy, insane. Right? Not any loss of conscience, because the one that is sleeping is different. So here al-ighma أو الجنون, fainting or went insane the entire day from Fajr till Maghrib. Fasting is not valid. What is then the ruling here? وَيَقْضِي الْمُغْمَى عَلَيْهِ. وَيَقْضِي from al-qada. Who is the one that is going to make up the day? Only al-mughma alayh. Only the one that fainted. Al-majnoon, no qada for him. Even if he was majnoon, he was insane only for one day. But the entire day, does that person insane, then he gained conscious afterwards? He became insane and then he became sane afterwards. He is not to make up that day, because he was not addressed with the ibadah whatsoever. Different than the one that fainted. You see the difference here? We're not talking about those who were sleeping. If someone slept before Fajr and he woke up after Maghrib, with the condition that he made intention for fasting during the night, which is the next subject here. He has to have intention during the night. And the intention during the night is that you know that tomorrow is Ramadan and you're fasting. So someone slept. We're not talking about sinful acts. Someone missed the salah intentionally. With the ahkam of the fiqh, sometimes you would see things strange, but we're dealing here with the rulings of fiqh. What is the ruling upon that person, regardless if it's a sinful act or not. So if someone slept before Fajr and he woke up after Maghrib, his fasting, right, as far as being asleep, is it valid or not? This is different than here. Right? So some said it's valid. Why? Because he did not faint, he did not went crazy, and he had the intention of fasting. And also in this mas'ala here, if someone fainted or he went insane, if they gain conscious for a short period of time during the day, then the day counts. So here it's very specific. If it's the entire day from Fajr till Maghrib, then their fasting is not valid, and only the one that fainted, he would make up the day. The next mas'ala, he says, وَلَا يَصِحُّ صَوْمُ فَرْضٍ إِلَّا بِنِيَّةٍ مُعَيَّنَةٍ بِجُزْءٍ مِنَ اللَّيْلِ. وَلَا يَصِحُّ. What is لَا يَصِحُّ? It is not valid. Right? It's not sahih. It's not valid. صَوْمُ فَرْضٍ. Sawm, fasting of an obligation. And al-fard, whether it's Ramadan or nadhr, vow or kafara or something like this. So any fard fasting, it is not valid except with a niyyah, with an intention, muayyana, a very specific intention for that specific fard. Bijuz'i min al-layl, in part of the night. So it has to be the intention during the night, and it's not valid to have the intention during the day. So the night before the day. This is for every day in Ramadan. There is differences of opinions. So here, the intention is not too much work. What it means, what's the difference between having one intention in the beginning of Ramadan and every night that you have the intention of fasting? First of all, there's no intention to be uttered with one's mouth. There's no such a thing. And niyyah is in the heart. So if someone says, nawaitu an asum, this is all innovations in the deen. There's no such a thing to speak out your intention. It's in your heart. And what does it mean is that you're awake at some point during the night that you know that the next day is Ramadan. That is sufficient. You know that the next day is Ramadan. What makes it significant here is that if a person, you guys paying attention? If a person slept before Maghrib and he woke up after Fajr. If someone went to sleep before Maghrib and he woke up after Fajr, and then this is Ramadan. Of course, he will fast, inshallah, but he has to make up that day, according to this. Why? Because he did not have intentions during the night. Why? Because he was never awake during that night. That's the only thing that comes up as a result of having the intention during the night. But if you're awake for any time during the night, there's no such a thing as let me have my intentions now for tomorrow fasting. There's no such a thing. Just live your life normally. You know that the next day is Ramadan. This is basically what the intentions is. If a person eats suhoor, this is intentions. There's no an action to be done as far as focusing or bringing one's thought together. So the niyyah should be during the night with what that means. And there's a hadith in Sunan Abi Dawud where the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ لَمْ يَجْمَعْ الصِّيَامْ قَبْلَ الْفَجْرِ فَلَا صِيَامَ لَهُ. The one that does not bring the intention of fasting before Fajr, there is no fasting for him. This is for the fard. As for the nafl, this is the next point. The next line, if you see it, وَيَصِحُّ نَفْلٌ مِمَّنْ لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مُفْسِدًا بِنِيَّةٍ نَهَارًا مُطْلَقًا. وَيَصِحُّ. Now يَصِحُّ means what? It's valid, it's sahih, it's correct. Nafl. What is nafl? Optional fasting. That means it's not mandatory. Recommended fasting. It's valid from the one mimman lam yaf'al, from the one that did not do any mufsid, anything that breaks the fast. Mufsid l'siyam. Al-fasad is corruption, and mufsidin are the corrupted ones. And al-fasad here to invalidate an action. Meaning, when a person breaks his fast, or he eats and drinks after Fajr, right, then can he make intentions of fasting afterwards for nafl? No, because he already ate after Fajr. So what it means here, that if it's nafl fasting, Mondays and Thursdays and the like of this, you don't have to have the intention during the night. You can have the intention of fasting during the day, as long as you did not eat or drink or do anything that breaks the fast from Fajr time. Naharan mutlaqan. Mutlaqan means at any time during the day, because some said it's only till Dhuhr time. According to the madhab here, there's no dalil that makes it only till Dhuhr time. So for example, if someone did not eat anything or drink anything and did not do anything that breaks the fast from Fajr time, but he did not have any intentions of fasting till before Maghrib, no food, no drink whatsoever, maybe slept or something like this, regardless if it's haram or halal, missing salah, but before Maghrib he didn't eat or drink anything, you can have intentions of optional fasting, but you will get the reward only from the moment that you made the intention. So whether it's an hour, 2 hours, so this is where the time it's going to count as the rewards are concerned. So this is for the nafl salah, the nafl fasting. This is only for the nafl, not the fard. The fard, that has to be during the night time, that you have to have a time with the intention. So this is with regards to that. Afterwards, you see fasl, sub-chapter here in the rulings of fasting. As you see, there's so many different cases here. Waman starts with waman. Waman means and whoever, refers to a aqil, refers to a human being. And then after all of these different sub-titles here or masail, if you go to the next page, you would find Amidan Mukhtaran Dhakiran Lisawmi Aftar. Aftar means these people, these cases here, they break their fast. If this happened, that breaks the fast. These things breaks the fast. So now we're going to talk about what breaks the fast after talking about those who are excused with some of the details as we heard. So who are the ones that breaks the fast? And these issues also might have differences of opinions, or the fatwa of the ulama might be different. But let's first see what are these types of people that their fasting is not valid, or they break their fast as a result of this. The first one, adkhala ila jawfi. Adkhal ila jawfi. Adkhal, he entered something. Ad-dukhul is to enter into something or somewhere. Al-jawf is the inside of the person, but refers to the normal entrance of food and drink, which is through the mouth, even the nose, if it goes through the throat down to the stomach. This normal passage of eating and drinking. If something goes inside, once it goes to the throat, you feel the taste of it in your throat, then this has to go inside. The mouth is not al-jawf. Al-jawf is what's hollow inside. The mouth is not inside, it's not jawf. So if something only stays in the mouth and you don't feel the taste of it, as we will see some of the things here, that it does not break the fast unless it goes inside. Whether it's physically goes inside, or the taste of it goes inside, or anything that goes inside in the normal passage of food and drink. أو مجوف, or mujawaf. Mujawaf is also the inside, but not in the normal passage of food and drink. Not in the normal passage of food and drink. So for example, if it's from where the urine is different, but where the feces comes from, if something goes into the body, according to this, it breaks the fast. If it goes inside, it breaks the fast. في جسده أو مجوف في جسده, goes inside. Things that goes into the stomach, not in the normal passage of eating and drinking. كدماغ وحلق, like the head or the throat. Something goes in there, but not in the normal passage. Someone in the hospital having these types of inserting nutrition and things like this. شيئا من أي موضع كان. It doesn't matter from where, as long as it goes inside into the normal place where the food and drink is, that breaks the fast. غير إحليله. Are we okay? غير إحليله. No. Except al-ihlil. Ihlil is what? Is the urethra, right? Where the urine comes from. If a person, there's a medicine or something that is going through that, does not go through the jawf, does not go through the inside. It goes to the bladder, right? So it doesn't break the fast. This is according to the madhab here. You understand the mas'ala here? The fatwa of the ulama, like the contemporary scholars, like the Mashayikh, Sheikh Ibn Baz, Ibn Uthaymeen, and others, and so on, and it's also a riwayah, it's a narration here, is they make differences of what goes inside. Anything that goes through the normal passage of food, whether it's nutrition or not, that breaks the fast, right? But if it's something that doesn't go through the normal passage of food, then if it's nutritional, then it breaks the fast. So, for example, insulin shots, according to the fatwa, it doesn't break the fast because it's not nutritional. Glucose or some vitamins or things like this, it breaks the fast because it gives what negates it negates the fasting, which a person would, if a person is in need of it, is not sinful, of course, but again, they limit it to what is nutritional. But here, just to understand this mas'ala, whether it's go to the normal passage of food or not, except what doesn't go through the passage of food. So that's why if a person tastes the food, and if it stays in the mouth, even though it's disliked, but it doesn't break the fast, as long as it doesn't go inside. So this is one. The second one, أو ابتلع نخامة بعد وصولها إلى فمه. And bear with me, inshallah ta'ala, with these types of things. أو ابتلع is to swallow. نخامة, and nukhama is what comes from the chest. What's the nukhama? The balgham? Huh? Phlegm. Now, the phlegm, the one that comes from the chest, not the one that comes from the nose, the one that comes from the chest. If it reaches the mouth, right, that means it should be spat out. But if a person swallows it, I'm not sure if someone wants to do this, but after it reaches the lips, then according to this, it breaks the fast. And this is something that is not nutritional, of course. So according to the other opinion, that it doesn't break the fast. But to be aware of this, to spit it out, and that's what needs to be done. أو استقاء فقاء. The third case here, استقاء. استقاء, al-qay is to throw up, is to vomit. Istaqaء is to intentionally vomit. If someone intentionally vomited, whether he did that for a good reason or for a bad reason, it doesn't matter. If that happens, if he tried to vomit and he vomited, that breaks the fast. That breaks the fast. But man dara'ahu al-qay, as the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever vomited without an intentional action, without doing anything, that does not break the fast. So there's difference between someone vomited and someone made himself vomit, put his finger in his mouth, for example, or took something to make him vomit. If it's intentional, then it breaks the fast. He has to make up the day. But if it happened, he overpowered, then it does not invalidate the fasting. The next case, أو استمنى أو باشر دون الفرج فأمنى وأمذى. I want you to understand this first, and then as far as what is done by many of the people, especially with the fatwa of the ulama, is something different. Istamna, of course, this is agreed upon, is to intentionally get the seminal fluid out. I don't want to be explicit, right? So al-istimna is the seminal fluid when it comes out intentionally. أو باشر دون الفرج فأمنى. باشر دون الفرج, caressing, touching, and there is no full relations, right? And as a result of that, the seminal fluid got ejaculated, come out. Of course, that breaks the fast if it's intentional. If it happened when a person is asleep, it doesn't break the fast. It's not intentional. أو أمذى, if a person would had some form of a caressing or touching and so on, and as a result of that, al-madhi came out. Al-madhi is different than al-mani. Al-mani is where the child, the human being is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them from the seminal fluid. But al-madhi is the discharge that comes before that. And it's a bit tricky here, you have to pay attention to what is meant here. If a husband and wife and there is touching and things like that, and as a result of that, the madhi, not the mani, not the seminal fluid, the discharge that is before the seminal fluid comes out, that breaks the fast according to the madhab. Right? If the madhi comes out as a result of something else, looking at something haram or looking at something halal, right? And madhi comes out, madhi which is not where the child is made from, but rather it's the discharge before that. It doesn't break the fast. So when does the madhi breaks the fast? The madhi is again the discharge that comes before the mani. It just comes when a person is thinking or things like this. It only breaks the fast according to the madhab if a person is touching or doing something other than the full relations with one's wife. But if it comes out in a different situation, then it doesn't break the fast. Seminal fluid intentional, then it breaks the fast, whether it's with another person or with oneself. And that's why the next one it says أو كرر النظر فأمنى. If the seminal fluid comes out as a result of repeated looking or gazing at something, right, and as a result of that the seminal fluid comes out, that breaks the fast. If it comes out from one look, right, that doesn't break the fast. But if it comes out after intentional looking, right, that means this is where makes these masail different is someone intentionally going after one's desire versus just something happened by accident. So if it as a result of looking after looking, then this breaks the fast. But if a person looked more and kept on looking, and not the seminal fluid but the madhi, the discharge that is before that comes when a person think of something of a desire, that doesn't break the fast unless it's with another person physically doing something. Is it clear? طيب. The second case, أو نوى الإفطار. أو نوى الإفطار. Or what breaks the fast if a person have intentions of breaking the fast. Made a decision that he's going to break his fast. Not going to break his fast, no, he broke his fast. Because if someone says, later on I will break my fast, that's different. But someone is fasting and say, for example, he's sick. He's not feeling well. So you would say, okay, that's it, I'm breaking my fast. So that means he changes intentions. So therefore the fast is not valid anymore. Right? أو نوى الإفطار. Because one of the pillars of fasting is intentions. The intention is that you're fasting. So if you decided that you're not fasting anymore, even if you didn't eat anything, you already broke your fast. It's different than thinking about the matter or whispers comes into one's mind. This is not what we're talking about here. It's a niyyah, is a person already broke his fast and just start to take the means to do so. The second one, أو حجم أو احتجم. Al-hijama. Al-hijama is the cupping, the wet one. If a person makes it for others or if a person does it to himself, according to the madhab, that breaks the fast, if it's during the day. According to the three imams, the other three imams, it doesn't break the fast. Right? So it's better to avoid it in Ramadan at least. During the day, if a person wants to make hijama, it's better to avoid it during Ramadan, during the day of Ramadan. So these cases, if all of this happened, عامدا مختارا ذاكرا لصومه. عامدا means intentionally. مختارا willingly. He's not forced to do any of this. ذاكرا لصومه. He remembers that he's fasting. He did not do it forgetfully. But some of the situations, some of the ulama, they did not make an excuse for someone if he forgets. like relations with one's wife, for example. But anyway, in general, if a person does any of what's mentioned before, forgetfully, or coerced or forced to do it, or intentionally, then that breaks the fast. So that means if it's by accident, it doesn't break the fast. If it's being forced to do it, it doesn't break the fast. If he forgot, ate and drank and he was forgetting, then it doesn't break the fast. Right? So if you go back again to this list, right, if you're taking notes, then we don't have to do that because of the time, inshallah ta'ala. Hopefully it's clear. Inshallah, by the way, we'll have an exam. I should said that early on, right? So, but it's not mandatory. If you want to take the exam, inshallah, hopefully also you can get something, but we'll have an exam at the end, inshallah. Then the next point, it says, la. That means there is an exception to what's mentioned before. These things that is coming now, if a person does it, it doesn't break the fast. Take this. It's me. So now exceptions to what breaks the fast. Some things people might think it breaks the fast, but it doesn't. What is it? In fakkara fa'anzal. If he was thinking and as a result of that, the seminal fluid came out. Fakkar, it's something that a person might be overpowered. So that's why it doesn't break the fast in this case. That's different than the repeated looking or gazing. So fakkar only, without doing anything else. أو دخل ماء مضمضة أو استنشاق حلقه, or دخل ماء, water entered from مضمضة, from making مضمضة in wudu, أو استنشاق, in the nose, حلقه, it reached his حلق, which is the throat. ولو بالغ أو زاد على ثلاث, even if he was doing it in an excessive manner or did more than 3 times. Because the Prophet ﷺ clearly stated that it's from the sunnah what is recommended to make mubalagha, to make excessiveness in making madmada and istinshaq, illa an takuna sa'iman. Unless you're fasting, do not do so. So that's why some of the ulama, they said if you're fasting and you disobey the command of the Prophet ﷺ, do it more than 3 times, which is whether you're fasting or not, it's not supposed to be done. Or you do it in an excessive way, lots of water and things like this. If something goes in by accident, you break your fast because you disobeyed the command of the Prophet ﷺ. But according here to the madhab, even if a person does it and did not follow the order of the Prophet ﷺ, it doesn't break the fast if it's go inside by accident. And that's why some people, they don't make wudu properly when they're fasting. They wipe over the lips, which is not valid in wudu. You have to have water inside of your mouth, right? And then you spit it out, but don't put too much water. And the same thing with the nose. And if you feel the taste which is over one's capacity, that does not invalidate the fasting. The taste here is not tasting the water. He did not swallow water. It's just the coolness of the water. This does not break the fast. And we should not be extremists in these types of matters. And the shaitan has his own ways in this. The second point is وَمَنْ جَامَعَ بِرَمَضَانِ, مسألة الجماع. If someone has relations, right, during the day in Ramadan. Naharan, during the day, of course. During the night, it's okay. بِلَا عُذْرِ شَبَقْ. The ulama mentioned an exception. If someone has shabaq, a shabaq is a disease, some form of a mania, that a person or obsession of some sort, but in the category of being sick, have a disease, that a doctor would, mention this. Not a person just have desire or some extreme desire. It has to be as being sick. So whoever have relations during the day of Ramadan, وَنَحْوِي, that means unless he has a disease, فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ وَالْكَفَّارَةُ مُطْلَقًا, then he has to make up the day and he has to make the expiation. And the expiation is a heavy one because of the sanctuary of the day of Ramadan. This is the relations, having relations with one's wife. This is qada. The day has to be made, and kaffara, expiation. And the expiation has to be done. It doesn't matter what a person conditioned is, he has to make the kaffara. But then he says, وَلَا كَفَّارَةَ عَلَيْهَا. Is the kaffara the expiation? And we'll see what the kaffara is. Is that upon the man only or the man and the woman? He says here, there is no kafara for the women. The kafara is upon the man only because of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ ordered the man to do the kafara, and he did not tell him to do the same or to ask his wife to do the same. It was only the man. But here it says, وَلَا كَفَّارَةَ عَلَيْهَا مَعَ الْعُذْرِ. Only if she has an excuse. If the woman has an excuse, for example, كَنَوْمٍ, if she was asleep, أو إكراه, or she was forced, or وَنِسْيَان, forgetfully, وَجَهْل, ignorance of the ruling, وَعَلَيْهَا الْقَضَاء, upon the woman is al-qada only, she has to make up the day. And according to another narration, if she willingly she did it, that means she has to also do the kafara. Right? So this is the kafara of, this is the toughest kafara expiation of this major sin during the days of Ramadan as a result of relations. What is the kafara? وَهِيَ عِتْقُ رَقَبَةٍ, to free a slave. And raqaba is the neck, which refers to freeing a slave. فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ, if a person doesn't find a slave to free, then فَصِيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ, fasting 2 consecutive months without breaking the fast any day in between. And the 2 consecutive months, either from the seeing the moon from the beginning of the month and then the end of the month like this, the normal way, or can you start doing that in the middle of a month? That's fine, but it's going to be 60 days. So either 60 days consecutively, that means if a person fasted 59 days and the 60th day he broke his fast, he has to start over again. Right? So 2 consecutive months for just one act. That's in order. So if a person is not able to fast, then the third choice here is فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ. It's not according to your choice, it's according to one's ability. So since there's no slave to free, then it's the thing is to fast 2 consecutive months. What if a person is not able to? Then فَإِطْعَامُ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا, then is to feed 60 poor person. Can a person feed 60 poor if he has the ability to fast? No, he can't. He has to fast 2 consecutive months for every day that he did such an act. فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ, what if he doesn't have any of that? And according to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, it's a beautiful hadith when the man, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, halakt, I'm perished, I'm ruined, because he had relations with his wife during the day of Ramadan. The Prophet ﷺ asked for him, can you free a slave? He said, I can't. Can you fast 2 consecutive months? He said, I can't. Prophet ﷺ did not tell him, give me the proof that you're not able to. You know, whatever the word of the person says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. He says, can you feed 60 poor people? He said, ala afqar min ya Rasulullah. Is there anyone poorer than me in Medina, O Prophet of Allah? If there's any poor in Medina, that's me. So the Prophet ﷺ called for a container of date, and he was given that container for himself and his wife. So the guy ended up going home with food for himself and his wife as the expiation of his fasting. And that's why he says, فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ سَقَطَتْ. If he doesn't even have the means to feed 60 poor person, then there's no saqata. That means it becomes invalid. He doesn't have to do anything. That means he's saved from any expiation. This is with the mas'ala of al-jima' during, or relations during the day of Ramadan. The next mas'ala here, وَكُرِهَ, what's disliked. Disliked meaning if a person does it, if a person does what is disliked or what is makruh, it doesn't invalidate the fasting, but if he leaves it, he get rewards. And makruh, if you leave the makruh, you get rewards. But if you do it, right, you're getting yourself closer to the haram. It's better to avoid it. But if you do it, then there's no sin on you. And if there's a need for a person to do the makruh, then it becomes not makruh for him, if there's a need. So what is makruh while a person is fasting? It says, أَنْ يَجْمَعَ رِيقَهُ فَيَبْتَلِعَ. I'm not sure why would a person wants to do that. Keeps on collecting riqahu. Riq is the saliva. Keep on collecting his saliva and then he swallows it. Collecting it and swallow intentionally, right? Which is something disliked. It doesn't break the fast, but a person should not do that. وَذَوْقُ طَعَامٍ. Dhawq is to taste food. A person should not taste food for the fun of tasting food. If a person has to, he's fixing food for lots of people. It has to be good, otherwise people won't eat it, for example. If he tastes it with the tip of his tongue, or a woman does this, it doesn't break the fast. Why? Because it did not go inside. If the taste goes inside and he feels it in his throat, that means it breaks the fast. وَمَضْغُ عِلْكٍ لَا يَتَحَلَّلْ. Madgh is to chew. Ilk is where the word for gum. لا يتحلل, it does not dissolve. What does that mean? You know the Arabic ilk is very bitter. It does not have any taste to it. It's like basically you have a piece of paper that you're chewing on. It might dissolve in your mouth, which is not valid. Say a piece of plastic, for example, right? I'm not sure also, you should not do that, of course. But if someone is doing that during Ramadan, like this, with the pen, he has a habit of biting on a pen, it doesn't break the fast. But if it's something like this, ilk, the gum, of course, in the market, has things dissolve, has a taste to it, that breaks the fast, of course. Someone has a gum, that breaks the fast. But if it's something that doesn't have any taste to it, doesn't have anything that dissolves, if a person finds a taste to it, that breaks the fast. So nobody is to take from this that it's okay to chew gum during the day of Ramadan. وَإِنْ وَجَدَ طَعْمَهَا فِي أَوْ طَعْمَهُمَا فِي حَلْقِهِ أَفْطَرَ. If he finds the taste of it in his throat, that means he broke his fast. So if there's a taste to it, it breaks the fast. Then he says, وَالْقُبْلَةُ وَنَحْوُهَا مِمَّنْ تُحَرِّكُ شَهْوَتَهُ. Kissing and the like of it, for someone that his shahwa, his desire will be moved, or he would have a desire as a result of that, it should be avoided. That the madhi is not mentioned here. So if a person kiss or touch or so, and then madhi comes out, what's the ruling according to the madhab? Breaks his fast. Now, right? But if it's only, as the Prophet ﷺ would do that, but it's no desire in it, then it doesn't break the fast. The next point, وَتَحْرُمْ. Now it's haram to do these things, وَتَحْرُمْ, during the day of fasting. إِنْ ظَنَّ إِنْزَالًا. What is tahrum here? The kissing. If a person in dhanna, if he expects inzalan, something comes down, right? So if there is a discharge as a result of kissing, then it's haram for him to kiss, right? Because he knows that this is going to happen to him, then it's haram for him to do so. وَمَضْغُ عِلْكٍ يَتَحَلَّلْ. If he knows that al-ilk, or the gum, is going to dissolve, has a taste, right? Then it's haram for him to start that with. Right? So if he knows that. And again, the ilk is a specific one, not the gum that is in the market. This breaks the fast, of course. وَكَذِبٌ. It's haram to lie. Only in Ramadan when you're fasting? No, at all times. Right? But why this is mentioned here specifically? Because Ramadan is even, the hurma is more. Right? While a person is fasting, وَكَذِبٌ وَغِيبَ, and backbiting, وَنَمِيمَ. An-namima, as we know, the definition of an-namima is نقل الكلام, to take someone's word to someone else, من أجل الإيقاع بين الناس, to make fitna among people, to make people have enmity towards one another. This is what an-namima is, major sin. وشتم, reviling someone, ونحوه, and the like of this. This is very stressed during Ramadan and in other Ramadan, and this is one of the ways in Ramadan to avoid these things for the rest of the year. Right? And as we know, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that if someone try to have a quarrelsome with you or fight with you, you say, Inni mru'un sa'im, I am fasting, I'm fasting. You're not showing off. You're saying that you're different than someone that is not fasting. It doesn't mean that these things, sinful acts, is permissible during the night. And some people, they would say that, wait till Maghrib time. I'll show you after Maghrib, things like this. People do that sometimes when they fight in the streets and things like this. And they would say with extreme anger, I'm fasting, as if he's holding himself because he's fasting, which is, of course, something that should be avoided. One last thing before we end, inshallah ta'ala. I wanted to finish this last part here. He says, وَيُسَنُّ, which means it's recommended. وَسُنَّ, with a nun, not with a ta' marbuta at the end, which is some of the things that is recommended while fasting, or for the fasting in general, or Ramadan in general. So if a person does it, he gets reward. If he doesn't do it, he doesn't get reward. But this is from a fiqh perspective, right? So that we know the ruling of it. But anything that is recommended, if you believe that it's recommended because we have wahy in it, that it's recommended, whether it's in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that means what? That means do it. Right? That's what recommended means. But if you don't do it, then there's no sin on you, there's no expiation. This is basically what is meant here. تعجيل فطر, to break your fast. تعجيل العجلة is to be in haste. So to break your fast quickly, right away after sunset. Don't wait. If the sun sets, immediately break your fast. And those people who wait 5 minutes, 3 minutes, this is against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Once the sun sets, then break your fast, and it according to where you are. So if you are in 100 levels story, then it's different. The sunset up there different than when you're on the ground, for example. So it's according to where your position is, in the plane and the ground. So once the entire qurs, the entire sun disk disappears completely, not part of it, once it disappears, that means you break your fast. تعجيل فطر. التعجيل is from the sunnah before you make the salah, even with a sip of water. And of course, what is recommended is with rutab, fresh dates. If not, then dates. Then, if not, then حسوات من الماء, just sips of water. وتأخير السحور, to delay the suhoor, to make it as late as you can. As-suhoor is the meal before Fajr. And the later it can be, then this is what is recommended, as the Prophet ﷺ used to do that. And he said, لا يزال الناس بخير. People will continue to be in goodness as long as they معجلوا الفطور, the iftar, that they make the iftar in haste, that means immediately after sunset, and as long as they delay as-suhoor, and it's a blessed meal, as the Prophet ﷺ said, and other narrations with this regard. وَقَوْلُ مَا وَرَدَ عِنْدَ فِطْرٍ, also what is recommended, to say something when you break in your fast. مَا وَرَد, warad means has been reported. عِنْدَ فِطْرٍ, when you break in your fast at Maghrib time. اللهم لك صمت وعلى رزقك أفطرت. These types of du'as, the authentic ones when you are breaking the fast. Also, وَتَتَابُعُ الْقَضَاءِ فَوْرًا. Something that is recommended is التتابع, is to do something consecutively. 2 months متتابعين, that means consecutively. So وَتَتَابُعُ الْقَضَاء. Al-qada, making up the days that you broke in Ramadan, your fast, to make it one after the other. Fawran, immediately after Ramadan, of course, after breaking your fast in the day of Eid, because it's haram to fast in the day of Eid. The first day of Shawwal, it's haram to fast. What is recommended is that right after that, immediately make up the days. It's recommended, it's not mandatory. Why it's recommended? Because you have a tabi'ah, you have a responsibility, you have a fard upon you. You should not delay it. You should make it as soon as you can, even though it's permissible to delay. In the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, she would delay making up the days of Ramadan, of fasting, that she did not fast till before the month of Ramadan in Sha'ban. But this is only recommended as a way to get one's responsibility done with the fard. وحرم تأخيره إلى آخر بلا عذر. حرم, it's haram. تأخيره, تأخير is to delay making up the days إلى آخر, to another Ramadan, without an excuse. So to wait for the next Ramadan to come. So a next Ramadan comes and you still have days from the previous one, according here to the method, that it's haram to do so, and if you don't have an excuse. So for a woman, she has an excuse, breastfeeding, pregnant, and so on, then there's no harm, inshallah ta'ala. فَإِن فَعَلْ, and this is the fatwa of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, if a person that happened, a next Ramadan comes in, when there was some days that he did not fast, did not make them up, وَجَبَ مَعَ الْقَضَاء, you still have to make up that day, but wajaba becomes wajib, becomes mandatory. إطعام مسكين عن كل يوم, to feed a poor person for every day. So now there is إطعام as a result of a year past. And this is what Abdullah ibn Abbas used to give that verdict. And again, the matter has differences of opinions. The last two, quickly inshallah ta'ala before we end, is وَإِن مَاتَ الْمُفَرِّطُ وَلَوْ قَبْلَ آخَرٍ. وَإِن مَات, if mat, died, al-mufarrit. Al-mufarrit, tafrit is when someone is loose, when someone did wrong. That means he did not make up the days of fasting, and he died before making up the days of fasting. وَلَوْ قَبْلَ آخَرٍ, even if he died before the next Ramadan comes, because he was supposed to finish it before he dies. We don't know when the moment of death will come. So if a person dies before making up the days of fasting, أُطْعِمَ عَنْهُ كَذَلِكَ, is to feed on his behalf the same way. من رأس ماله, from his own money before it's distributed for the inheritors. ولا يصام, and nobody is to fast. No one is to fast for him. And this is also a matter that has differences of opinions. In the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, "Man mata wa alayhi siyam," whoever dies and he has fasting, sama anhu waliyu, his wali is to fast on his behalf. According to the madhab here, is in the other than Ramadan fasting, nadhr, vow, or the like of this. But for Ramadan, just to feed and not to make up the days. And the other opinion, that is to make up the fast also for those who are after him. The last one, inshallah ta'ala, because I know I took too much time. وَإِنْ كَانَ عَلَى الْمَيِّتِ نَذْرٌ مِنْ حَجٍّ أَوْ صَوْمٍ أَوْ صَلَاةٍ وَنَحْوِهَا. If al-mayyit, the deceased, have nadhr, vow, min hajj, whether it's hajj, he made a vow to make hajj, or he made a vow to make fasting, or he made a vow to make salah, and the like of this, of acts of obedience to Allah, sunnah liwaliyihi qada'u. His wali, his guardian, the one that is responsible for him, it is recommended for him to make up what he made as a vow. Not fard, the fasting. Vow is different, which is an obligation upon a person. He made it upon himself. Regardless of the ruling of vow, we should not make vows, but if a person does it, then when he dies, then people need to make up that for him. وَمَعَ تَرِكَةٍ يَجِبْ. And if he left tarika, if he left wealth after he died, then it's mandatory to take it from his money to pay off the nadhr or the vow. لَا مُبَاشَرَةُ وَلِي. The wali doesn't have to be the one that does it. If the person, the deceased, did not leave any money, then the wali, the guardian, doesn't have to do anything about the vow. It's only recommended for him, and he doesn't have to do it himself. Someone else can do it as a result of that. We'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala. And again, this is, it's kind of in haste, but it's okay as long as you understand and you perceive you can see the masail clearly, inshallah ta'ala. We have one more class in this, and then we make sure that you understand it. We'll have a simple exam, inshallah ta'ala. At the end, we'll see how it's to be done. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept and to forgive our sins. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all, inshallah ta'ala. Forgive me for taking too much of the time. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.